and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the Chico Marx of board game review shows. Hey, I'm not going to sign that contract. My parents told me there ain't no such thing as a sanity clause. Ladies and gentlemen, do you remember the very first time you spiked some punch at a party? Well, this game isn't about that. It's not about punches, it's not about parties, but it is about spikes. The last spikes from Columbia Games. In the last spike from Columbia Games, 2 to 6 players are going to attempt to complete the Transcontinental Railroad all the way from St. Louis to Sacramento. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do this, a lot of different cities you're going to go through, and you and your friends are going to have to figure out exactly how this rail is going to go, but you're also going to be trying to make the most money in the process. Now, at the beginning of the game, you go ahead and you mix up, face down, a bunch of railroad tiles. And they each have kind of numbers and letters on them that correspond to sections of track on the board. You're also going to get, depending on the number of players, a certain amount of money. The blue chips are 10,000, the red chips are 5,000, and the white chips are 1,000. You're also going to put land deeds around the board, and they all start at 0. They're going to get progressively more expensive as you go through the deck. Now, the first thing you're going to do is each draw a railroad track, and you're going to look at the letter and the number. Now, who is ever A1 or closest to A1 is the first player, then play proceeds clockwise. You put all those rails back, you mix them up, everybody draws 4 railroad tiles to begin the game. Turns are very simple. What you can do is you can place one of your railroad tiles on the board, but you have to pay the railroad cost. Now, if you place it next to a city or next to a railroad track that's already there, you just pay the cost that's on the tile. But if you place a track that is not connected to anything yet, you have to pay double its cost. Now, also, if you place a railroad tile next to a city, if you're the first person to place a railroad tile next to the city, you get the 0 land card. So you own a kind of a stake in that railroad coming out of that city. Now, that also opens up the rest of the cards so that in subsequent turns, players can purchase the next cards and go through the deck to purchase those to get a stake in that city. Now, you can only get 1 land grant per turn. So if I place one next to a city, I get the top one for free if I'm the first one there, and that's it. I can't get any more. But if I don't place one next to a city that is the first one and I get one for free, I can buy one. But I don't have to buy one next to a city I'm next to. I can buy one from anywhere on the board, provided it has a cost on the top of the card, meaning the first card has already been taken. Finally, at the end of my turn, I draw a new railroad tile, bringing my tiles up to 4. Now, play proceeds around like this, and sooner or later, some of the 4 spaces in between cities will be completed. Once the spaces in between cities are completed, that line pays out. Those cities on either end pay out. And depending on the number of cards, land grant cards that you have from each of those cities, you are going to make money. So the more cards you have from those cities, the more you're going to get paid. So it's kind of a game of land speculation because you're trying to figure out which tiles do I think, which rail lines do I think are going to connect and pay out so that I can make money? And you're going to want to buy as many of those cards from those cities that you can. Now, you keep playing around and around like this, and eventually you're going to run out of the tiles, in which case you just stop drawing them and you just keep playing the tiles you have. But eventually, you are going to connect through one route or another, St. Louis to Sacramento. As soon as the last spike is laid, the game ends, and whoever has the most money wins the last spike. So, what do I think of the last spike? Well, first of all, let me say this. I want to talk just a moment about the component quality. Good card stock. It's got wooden tiles, both for the tiles you're laying with the track and wooden coins. That's pretty neat. That's pretty cool in the fact that they're wood. I like that. I wish the money had been a little bit more thematic. I don't know how they could have done that, but maybe just instead of just kind of blank wooden tokens, you had something a little more thematic. I think that would have been kind of fun. So there's that. But honestly, the big complaint about the components here is this board. The board is small. It's functional. It works, but it's just light and it's uninspired. And it just, you feel like there just should have been something more to the board, and there's not. And that's disappointing. Frankly, it's really disappointing because, I pulled this game out, and when my friends have seen the board, they're like, oh, okay, we're going to play this. I mean, they were not too enthusiastic about playing the game based on the board. And honestly, I can't say I blame them. Now, one other problem I had with the components in this game, and that's a lack of a component that was needed. This game says you're supposed to keep your money secret. You don't want everybody else to see how much money you have. And yet there's no kind of player screens, and there's no way to really conceal that unless you just, we were putting up the rule books and other books to kind of hide stuff behind, or taking it off the table. And that's just, frankly, kind of lame. It would have been nice if they had provided a few little, I mean, there wouldn't have had to been much, but just a few little, paper or cardboard paper screens, player screens would have, I think, added a lot to this game. I mean, it's a simple thing, but it would have helped a lot. Now, okay, so those are my complaints about components. Now let me talk about gameplay. I'll tell you right now, I like this game. I think this is a fun game. This is a fun game of, land speculation. You're trying to figure out, how can I maximize the the money I have now, and against what I think is going to happen in the game. And so it's scary because you don't know who's going to place tiles. But it also leads to some interesting things about when and how you're going to place tiles. Which brings me to another point. There's a lot of luck in this game. There's a lot of luck in this game because it depends on a couple of things. If you draw tiles that are priced really low, you're going to do pretty well. If you're just drawing tiles that are priced pretty high, you're not going to do very well. Now, odds are you're going to draw a mix of each and it'll even out. But I got to tell you, first game I played, I drew all of these really low number tiles, like 1,000, 2,000 tiles. I was raking in the money and I won by a good margin that game. Second game I played, I was drawing $5,000, $6,000 tiles, and I nearly went bankrupt several times, and of course I was not the winner of that game. So there's a lot of luck in the draw. No question, a lot of luck in the draw. But this game is not devoid of strategy. There's still a lot of strategy, because especially if you can see a rel coming together, and you have paid out a lot of money to buy some, but somebody else is invested a lot more in that line, and you've got the tile. Should you place it there if you need capital, even though it's going to give him a lot of his own capital? Is it going to benefit him more than it benefits you? But sometimes you need that. Now, one other thing I didn't mention, and that is you can, if you are bankrupt, you can sell some of your land grant back to the bank at half the cost. And making the decisions about doing that. Do I really want to give up potential payouts just to stay afloat now? And sometimes you have to make that decision, and sometimes you may want to make that decision, even if you don't have to, just to hedge your bets. So there is some strategic things here, and where and how you're going to place these tiles. It can be frustrating when you don't have the tiles you need, or you don't know who has them, or if they're still in the pool. It can be very frustrating. But at the same time, you are really trying to maximize all of these resources that you've got. Your rels, your land, your money. And how do you make them work for you? It's exciting. It is fun. It's clever. This is also not a very long game. This game plays, honestly, I don't think I played a game longer than a half an hour. This is a really long game. I think if you've got people who know what you're doing, you could probably get through it in 20 minutes. This is a fast game, and I like that. I like long games, don't get me wrong, but I also like short games. I like games that know when they've overstayed their welcome. I mean, if this game were an hour, hour and a half, for the experience it gave me, I don't think I'd like it at all. But the fact that it is so fast, and yet it's got some strategy, it's got some luck, it all works together. I mean, as gameplay goes, The Last Spike is great. It is really great. Now, this brings me to my next point, because I really do enjoy gameplay, but I got to tell you that component problems, the lack of player screens, the small board, the uninteresting board, I guess you'd say, the functional board. What's the balance here between gameplay and components? And the game is, I think the retail in the game is about $40, and I am playing the game. I'm thinking to myself, well, I could see myself paying $25 for this game, maybe $30 on the outside. But when it's $40, it invites comparisons with $50 games. Wouldn't you rather just spend $10 more to buy something else? So when you look at Ticket to Ride or Steam or some of those other games out there, there's just more game in some of these other games. And I just, I imagine the cost for this is based a lot on those wood components, which again I really like. But I almost wonder, is that worth it? Is that a trade-off that's worth it? Wouldn't it have been better to have plastic pieces if you could bring it in at a cheaper price point? So I just don't know that the things I like about this game outweigh some of these problems I have at the price point. If it was cheaper, I'd say, go buy it. Where it is, I have a hard time giving it a flat-out recommendation. I can't do it. What I can do is, because I know this is a fun game, do not misunderstand me, this is a very fun game, and there's a lot of people that's going to like it. I got to give it a try before you buy it. This is going to be a personal decision. Do you think it's worth it for you? For me, I don't know. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. And remember, everyone says I love you. The great big mosquito and a sting you. The fly when he gets stuck on the flight paper too says I love you. Bum, bum.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I've been dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Yeah, you can't smile.